Okay, so I think what you're saying is that one of the reasons that it's difficult for you to get out and exercise is that you're afraid or very much aware of people watching you, that there's this sense that you're being observed when you work out. Even if that workout is a walk, it can be really challenging because there are eyes on you. And I think this is really common. And I don't think it's limited just to people that are trying to get started. I think this is something that people feel across the board, men and women, all different levels, all different weights, shapes, and sizes. So this is normal. I know there are people that don't experience this, but these people tend not to care what anybody thinks ever. It's just not built into their DNA to be really aware of the social environment around them. Whereas other people like you and myself, there is this like antenna around us that's picking up other people. Even if those other people are not thinking about us, we imagine that they're thinking about us. And what we imagine usually isn't good. So I know someone that moved to Boulder, Colorado because they wanted to train at elevation and be around a lot of elite athletes. And they were saying one of the most difficult things about training there is that you're never alone when you're running. There's so many good people out there running that you don't want to look bad. You don't want to look slow. You don't want to get passed. So everybody is pushing the pace and running at a higher intensity than they know they should or than they want to, because they're afraid of being judged for looking slow or something. So this is something that affects people at all levels. And for myself and anyone else that's ever experienced an injury, when you're coming back into movement, you're often starting at the beginning again. I start by walking. So from December maybe until March, I was walking every day. Even though that's the right workout to do when you're coming back from injury, there's a part of me that's like, oh no, what are people going to think? I'm walking. So I have to be really, really gentle with that part of me, with that socially sensitive part that feels that its value is linked or tied to the perception of others. But then there are other parts of me that say, no, my value is whatever I make it. And this is the process, this is the practice. Being able to distinguish these different aspects. One that requires some sort of social validation, one that needs to maintain a certain rank or self-image, and another part of us that says, well, this work right here, at this pace, at this level, is what is needed for growth to occur. But if I do this over here, which is going to make me look good, maybe, if somebody even cares, that level of effort or exertion is not going to lead to growth. It's going to lead to burnout and frustration and eventually quitting because it's not fun. So I think this is one of the biggest challenges for someone that is new to movement or getting back into it after an injury. Always err on the side of going too slow. Always. Because that will lead to sustainability, and that will lead to consistency, and that will lead to growth. So what do you do? How do you move into the aspect of yourself that's not so much focused on social perception? What I do is focus on the environment, focus on what I'm seeing, focus on how my environment is changing. And this is also really helpful when you're doing something that feels more effortful. We tend to focus on the effort, we tend to focus on the physical experience, and for most people it's not pleasant. So by taking your perception, your focus, and your attention and putting them into the world and noticing how things change as you move towards them is a great way to step outside of that other lens, or lenses, the lens of this is how I feel and I don't like it, or the lens of this is what people think of me and they don't like it. So one of the games that I play often, especially on trail runs, is I'll look up the trail if there's a point where I can see far, and I'll notice a shape, a color, something in the distance, and I don't quite know what it is. And I allow my brain to immediately jump to a conclusion as to what that thing is up there. There's a big black lump, bear. And then it's fascinating to keep running towards it and hold my attention on that object and to see it change. My perception actually gets updated with new data the closer I get. So, okay, it's not a bear. I think it's a stump. As I get closer, I got more information. And then I get closer to that. Oh, and now it's an oak stump or a maple stump. So there's more and more data that keeps coming in the closer you get to something. And I had a really fun story about this with a buddy of mine, where we're running up a mountain trail, and way up, maybe 200 meters ahead, we see this big yellow thing on the side of the trail. And I'm like, look at that, man. What is that, a tarp? Did someone throw a tarp or a blanket? God, these people throwing trash. I hate this. I have no respect for this trail. And he's looking at it, and he starts telling stories about jerks and idiots and people on their ATVs that just don't care, and we're all pissed off at these people. Of course, we don't have a specific person. We create this archetype in our head, and then we get mad at the archetype. So as we're getting closer, I'm like, wait a minute. It's not completely covering it. It looks like maybe yellow webbing, like seatbelt material. There's gaps in between, like with somebody tying something down, some logs on the back of their truck, and the cable snapped or something and they threw it away. What is that? And then as we get closer, wait a minute, that looks like vegetation of some kind, but I've never seen vegetation that color, not in the middle of summer. And then maybe 50 feet away, we're like, are those mushrooms? And then as we get up close, it was mushrooms. It was all these yellow fungus growing all over this down tree, this blanket of yellow fungus. And of course, we're not thinking back and apologizing to these archetypical rednecks that we were so pissed off at. We're just saying, oh, wow, cool, look at this fungus. So anyway, that's an aside to share how, if you're really tuned into your environment, and you allow your brain to jump to conclusions, and then you also allow your brain to keep updating that model the closer you get, suddenly the world becomes this thing to discover. And you get to see how perception is often wrong, and how the brain will create not just an image, but a story and a bad guy to make this whole, narrative feeling about. And it's just fun to watch your brain go through these. Anyways, pretty much all my runs are like that. If I'm not listening to an audiobook, I just allow myself to discover the world and watch how it changes as I get closer and closer. So that's one of the ways that I get myself out of that social awareness. And another way is audiobooks or podcasts. If I'm out there really tuned into an audiobook or podcast, I forget about everybody around me. But I want to share how social perception can actually be useful. Now, this is something you don't want to do all the time, but you can leverage this tendency of social perception or awareness to your benefit if you're trying to do something difficult. And again, this is not something I recommend on a regular basis. Today, for instance, I'm running up the Bald Mountain Trail, which is the mountain I'm looking at right out my studio. Parking lot was full of out-of-state cars. New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. And everybody's coming to Vermont to escape the cities and enjoy our woods and spread certain viruses around. Anyway, so I knew the trail was going to be full of people because there were a lot of cars in the parking lot. And my goal, when I looked at the mountain outside of my studio, was just get there, get to the trailhead, park the car, and then whatever, walk if you want. I don't care. Walk the whole way. It's 3 miles to the viewpoint and then another mile to the summit. So 8 miles for me. And as I started up the trail running, I felt okay. And so I allowed myself to just run at a nice, comfortable pace and not push it. But then suddenly I came across the first few people, and I noticed one of them said to the others, "Oh, wow, this guy's running." And that flipped a switch in me. And suddenly that social awareness engine lit up. And it's like, he's running. Are they impressed? Let's really impress them. And suddenly I'm not just running up the mountain, I'm flying up the mountain. And then I got out of sight of them and I slowed back down to my comfortable pace again. And I knew what was happening because I experienced this a lot, and because I have that intense need to feel important around people. That's one of the things that I work on personally. So I saw what was going on, and I said, you know what, I can use this. So the next group of people I came across, I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity to do another hill repeat. Because I had no intention of doing hill repeats up this mountain. I didn't even intend to run. I just needed to get there and then let my feet do what they were going to do. I passed 6 groups of people going up the mountain. And each of those 6 people or groups, I picked up the pace significantly and then slowed down once I was out of sight. Did I impress them? I don't know, and I don't care. That wasn't the goal. I'm never going to see these people again, and even if I did see them again, it doesn't matter. I don't need to impress anybody. This was my workout, but I was able to use that social perception to get a great workout in. So I had 6, maybe 100-meter hill sprints in the middle of that run today. So you can use this to your advantage if some hard work is prescribed. But again, not all the time. If I were to go out there and do that every day, I'd break my body down and it wouldn't work. So the next time I go, maybe tomorrow, on another trail with a lot of out-of-state people, I'm going to use the social perception engine in the opposite direction. When I come to people, I'm going to walk, and I'm going to walk past them. And then once I'm out of sight, I'll start running again. And then the next group of people I come to, I'm going to use that as a walk break. So you can play around with this and learn how to step outside of the need to be enough, the need to be perceived as something other than you presently are. Because that movement is about you and your well-being. It's not about them. But our brains often try to tell us that, nope, it's about them. So hopefully there's something in there that you can use to get out there and move and feel more comfortable. And again, play around with it. When you notice that need to somehow be something other than you when there's eyes on you, speed it up if that's prescribed, like you need a hard workout this week, or slow it down. There's people watching me? Time to walk. Time to breathe, time to walk, time to own this. This is my time, not theirs. Okay? I hope there was some value in there for you. Please let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this topic. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate it, give it 2 thumbs down. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and come on over to Patreon. For $1 or $2 a month, you help me create more content like this. Thank you.